Hello, this is Jake Von DeLinde, Director of Student Achievement in the Office of Educational Equity. I'll be walking you through our achievement report, which focuses on our MCA and FastBridge scores for reading, math, and science. Over the past year and a half, we have developed a new strategic plan. From that plan came 5 district goals and key areas. I chose the 3 goals and key strategies on this slide that I believe are aligned to the achievement report. Those goals are: Number 1, our graduates are prepared to achieve their goals and aspirations. Number 2, our learners contribute to an equitable, caring society. Number 3, we are a culturally responsive, inclusive, anti-racist district. We'll start with a look at some key demographic areas. These first 2 slides show our changing demographics and how we are becoming less comparable in our student groups to the overall statewide averages. I pulled data from census dates 2000, 2010, 2020, and some recent trend data to show how we have changed. I find it important to start with this information as we sometimes compare our data to the state data, but we're becoming less and less like the statewide averages in many of our student populations. Just a reminder that educational benefits are benefits that students receive if their family income is at or below certain thresholds. This can include free or reduced meals, transportation, athletics, and activities in other areas. Educational benefits in Roseville has more than tripled in students who receive benefits over that millennium. We have increased from 37% to 51%, and now a majority of our students receive educational benefits. The state also showed a significant increase. The count has been more accurate now since the pandemic, as we believe that the counts were low with an over-reliance of families completing paperwork. For our multilingual learners, we remain overall steady since our 2010-2011 school year. The major increase was between 2000 and 2011. The state has also remained steady from that 2010-2011 school year. We still remain well above state percentages for our multilingual learners, and we have increased about 220% since 2000. This slide looks at our students with an individualized education program and students who identify as Black, Indigenous, or people of color. For our students with an IEP, we increased from 2000 but have been relatively stable over the last 3 years. For our BIPOC students, the state increased of about 124% since the year 2000, but Roseville area schools increased about 205% since 2000. We've had some slight increases over the last 3 years, but we are well above the state average. I add these slides in for context, not excuses. We know that all students, regardless of background, can and should learn at high levels. As I shared in the previous slides, we've become less and less comparable to the state, although we do find that we are more comparable to the districts that you see represented here. We often look at the data from these districts to see how we compare in terms of student achievement, graduation, and other areas. These districts were chosen as they have student population sizes that are greater than 3,500 students and have similar student demographic populations. We will start with a review of our reading data. This slide shows the trend of Roseville area schools in blue compared to the statewide average in red, with 5 years of trend data, all based on the MCA3 reading test. In 2021, the school district data is included, but is not a comparable school year, as I described last year that because of the pandemic and the limited number of students taking the test, it is not representative of our typical testing. You will also notice that 2020 is not included. That was the year that all state testing was canceled. For reading, the tested grades are 3rd through 8th and 10. Roseville and the state both decreased about 1 percentage point from the previous year. Roseville students were 48.8% proficient, and the state proficiency was 49.9%. So we are about 1 percentage point below the state. For comparison, in 2019, we are about 3 percentage points behind the statewide reading proficiency rate. We are about 7.5 percentage points lower than 2019 and the state is about 9 percentage points lower than 2019. This slide shows Roseville area schools compared to Minnesota in reading proficiency by grade. In reading, our students in grades 4, 5, 6, and 8 improved proficiency rates from last year, while statewide, all these grade levels saw declines. Grades 6 and 8 are now performing above the statewide proficiency rates, and grade 7 is just slightly below the state. Our difference from 2019 proficiency rates ranges from 2 to 15 points below 2019 reading proficiency. This slide shows trend data for our students by race and ethnicity. From school year 2022, we see reading proficiency rate decreases for all of our student groups by race, except for white students, which results in an increase of our racial disparities for all of our student groups. Racial disparities now range from 23 to 42 percentage points. This slide provides trend data for our students who qualify for educational benefits, students with an individualized education plan, or IEP, and students who are English language learners. Students with an individual education program and students who receive educational benefits increased in their reading proficiency over 2022. This slide compares proficiency for our student groups to the statewide average for that group. Roseville is in dark blue and Minnesota in light blue. American Indian and Native American students, white students, and students with an IEP all performed above the statewide proficiency levels. All other student groups were below the state proficiency rate for their group. This slide provides us with a look at how we relate to our comparable districts and includes data from 2019 in dark blue, 2022 in blue, and 2023 in light blue. Most comparable districts decreased reading proficiency from the 2022 MCA test administration from a range of 1 to 3 percentage points. The range of decrease from 2019 is 6 to 15 percentage points. The average proficiency rate is 43%, which Roseville is well above, and performed above 7 out of our 8 comparable districts. This slide shows our school's reading achievement over a 4-year trend. Central Park, Edgerton, Falcon Heights, and Emmett D. Williams all increased in reading proficiency this year. Central Park's increase in reading proficiency brings them above their pre-pandemic levels by 7 percentage points. Falcon Heights and Emmett D. Williams are close to their pre-pandemic proficiency as well. The data from ROS is not able to use as a comparison because the participation rates were much lower in 2022 and 2023 than in 2019. We'll now take a look at some of our FastBridge reading data. This slide shows A reading growth for all students, mostly at the elementary levels. A reading is an adaptive reading test which measures reading skill and comprehension. Growth in FastBridge is broken into 4 categories: aggressive, typical, modest, and flat growth. We want to see flat growth and high aggressive growth rates. We see increased typical growth from 21-22. However, we also see increased modest and flat growth as well. When comparing school year 2022-23 to 2018-2019, we see very similar growth levels. It's important to continue to improve and grow our aggressive growth category. That moves the proficiency needle. This is the same data in the previous slide, except it is disaggregated by race and ethnicity. We see the highest rates of aggressive growth for our Black and Hispanic students in A reading. This slide provides more FastBridge data, but for early reading and CBM reading, which are mostly administered at the elementary levels and are given individually to our students. In early reading, students show their basic beginning reading skills. In the CBM reading, students read a passage to an assessor. These charts show the growth levels over 5 years of data. In early reading, we see an increase from last year in the amount of aggressive growth and typical growth, and a large decrease in flat growth from the previous 5 years. Almost all of our schools have increases in aggressive growth from the previous year. The largest gains in aggressive growth were Falcon Heights, Little Canada, and Emmett D. Williams. The largest decreases in flat growth were Little Canada, Edgerton, Harambee, Brimhall, and Central Park. In CBM reading, we had modest increases in aggressive growth from the previous year, with a large decrease in flat growth. Central Park had the largest decrease in flat growth, combined with the largest increase in aggressive growth, which definitely showed up in their increase in their MCA proficiency. Brimhall and Emmett D. Williams also had large decreases in their flat growth. This slide shows the same FastBridge tests, but only for the 2023 school year and broken down by race and ethnicity. In early reading, white and multiracial students have the largest percentages of aggressive growth. Hispanic students show the highest increase in aggressive growth, up 20 percentage points from the previous year. Hispanic and Black students showed the largest decreases in flat growth from the previous year. In CBM reading, we saw the highest levels of aggressive growth and the lowest levels of flat growth for our white and Asian students. Also, white and Asian students saw the highest increase in aggressive growth. Our largest decreases in flat growth were seen for our multiracial white and Black students. We'll now move into a reading summary. For MCA reading, Roseville and the state decreased about 1 percentage point from the previous year, which puts Roseville at 48.8% and is about 1 percentage point below the state, and is also about 7.5 percentage points down from our pre-pandemic levels. We see that grades 4, 5, 6, and 8 increased over the previous year, and now grades 6 and 8 perform above the state level. From pre-pandemic levels, for each of our grades, have fallen in a range of 2 to 15 percentage points. When we look at our MCA disaggregated by our student groups, we see a decrease for our BIPOC students and an increase for our white students, which resulted in increased racial disparities. Our students with an IEP and students who receive educational benefits increased. Most of our comparable districts also decreased, and Roseville continues to outperform 7 out of the 8 of our comparable districts. Looking at some of our schools, we saw Central Park, Edgerton, Falcon Heights, and Emmett D. Williams increase. And it's exciting now to see that Central Park is now well above their pre-pandemic levels. For some of our FastBridge information, for A reading, we saw an increase in our typical growth. We saw similar growth to our pre-pandemic levels, and we saw the highest growth rates for our Black and Hispanic students. In early reading, we saw an increase in aggressive and typical growth, with our largest decrease in flat growth in 5 years. Our Hispanic students showed the highest increase in aggressive growth and the largest decrease in flat growth. In our schools, Falcon Heights, Little Canada, and Emmett D. Williams had the highest levels of growth. For CBM reading, we saw an increase in aggressive growth and a large decrease in flat growth. Our highest growth and lowest flat growth was shown for our white and Asian students, and we saw our largest decreases in flat growth for multiracial white and Black students. And Central Park had the highest high growth and the lowest flat growth. Now we'll shift to our math achievement data. This slide includes 5 years of trend data, all based on the MCA3 math test. Roseville area schools is in blue, the Minnesota statewide average is in red. The 2021 school year data is included, but is not comparable because of the pandemic and the limited number of students taking the test that year. 2020 is not included, as that was the year that all state testing was canceled. For math, the tested grades are 3 through 8 and 11. Roseville area schools in the state both slightly increased from the previous year. Our math scores for 2023 show a proficiency rate of 37.9%. Whereas the state proficiency was 45.5%. We're about 7.5 percentage points below the state, which is about the same as 2022, and about the same difference we were from the state prior to the pandemic. This data compares our overall MCA scores to the statewide testing average for each grade. RAS stands for Roseville Area Schools as an abbreviation. Our math scores improved over school year 2022 in grades 4, 5, 6, 8, and 11. Grades 6 and 8 showed the most improvement, and statewide, grades 6 and 8 showed only marginal improvement. This slide provides trend data for our student groups by race and ethnicity. In math, we see increases from 2022 for our Black, Hispanic, and American Indian Native American students. Racial disparities for our Black, Hispanic, and American Indian Native American students decreased, while Asian students remained even, and multiracial students increased. Despite the decreases, our racial disparities continue and range from 20 to 39 percentage points. This trend line also shows student groups. For our students who qualify for educational benefits, students with an individual education program, and students who are multilingual learners. Students who receive educational benefits improved by 3 percentage points from 2022, and students with an IEP and multilingual learners both decreased from the previous year. This slide compares our district proficiency percent for each of our student groups compared to the statewide proficiency percentages. Our American Indian Native American students in Roseville area schools performed more than double the proficiency rate for that of the state. White students in Roseville area schools also performed above their statewide rate. This slide looks at the Roseville area schools to our comparison districts for 2019 in dark red, 2022 in red, and 2023 in pink. Most comparable districts stayed even or improved with their MCA scores from the previous year. Roseville is above the average district MCA proficiency rate of 35%. All districts continue to be below their pre-pandemic levels at a range of 7 to 22 percentage points below their proficiency rate from 2019. This slide shows MCA math scores from 2019 to 2023 by school building. Brimhall, Central Park, Edgerton, Falcon Heights, and EDW all increased in proficiency from 2022. With their math increase this year, Central Park continues to be above their pre-pandemic levels. Falcon Heights, at EDW, and Edgerton continue to trend up towards their 2019 levels. The next two slides switch from MCA data to FastBridge math data. In this slide, we're looking at growth for all students, growth for all of our students who are tested, which is mostly at the elementary level. We see a decrease in aggressive growth and an increase in our flat growth from the 2021-22 school year. We also see an increase in aggressive growth and a decrease in our flat growth from our pre-pandemic levels in the 2018-2019 school year. This slide provides data on growth by race and ethnicity for A math. Our highest rates of aggressive growth are seen for Asian and Hispanic students, and our lowest rates of flat growth were seen for Hispanic, white, and multiracial students. This is our math summary. In MCA, Roseville and the state saw small proficiency increases. Our math proficiency is 37.9%, which is about 7 points below the state. We are currently at about 11 percentage points from our pre-pandemic levels. For our tested grades, we saw 4, 5, 6, 8, and 11 improve. And looking at our MCA by disaggregated student groups, we see increases for Black, Hispanic, and Native American students, as well as students who receive educational benefits. Our Native American students in Roseville performed at twice the rate of the state. Our racial disparities decreased for Black, Hispanic, and Native American students. For some of our comparable districts, they mostly remained even or improved, and Roseville outperformed 5 out of our 8 comparables. Brimhall, Central Park, Edgerton, Falcon Heights, and E.D. Williams all increased. Central Park continues to be above their pre-pandemic proficiency level, And in Fastbridge, we saw a decrease in aggressive growth and an increase in flat growth from 2022. We saw an increase in aggressive growth and a decrease in flat growth compared to 2019. And our Asian and Hispanic students showed our highest growth. And our lowest rate of flat growth was shown for our Hispanic, white, and multiracial students. We'll briefly review a summary of MCA science data in the next slide. The tested grades for MCA science is 3, 5, and sometime in high school. We saw Roseville decreased about 1 percentage point from 2022, and it is down about 7 percentage points from 2019. The state dropped about 2 percentage points and is about 11 percentage points from 2019. We are about 7 percentage points below the statewide proficiency for this year. Our tested grades in grade 5, we saw an increase about 1.5 percentage points from 2022, and our other grades, grade 8 and 10, decreased at about the same rate as the statewide proficiency level. Our Black students showed the largest increase from 2022, increasing by almost 3 percentage points. Our multiracial and white students and students who receive educational benefits also increased slightly. Most of our comparable districts decreased in proficiency from 2022. Roseville continues to outperform 6 out of our 8 comparable districts. And finally, we'll finish up with our district focus areas. We have 3 major areas of focus this year. In elementary, in K-6, we have focusing on our English language arts adoption, which is focused on the science of reading. Our main focus this year has been on our curriculum adoption materials in Heggerty, Foundations, Geodes, and Wit and Wisdom. All of these materials are focused on how we get our students reading and focused on those practices that are around the science of reading. We also have been working multiple years on kindergarten through 4th grade professional development called Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling, or LETRS. This has brought about the practices of the science of reading to couple with the materials that we have now. In our upper elementaries, we've been focusing on Avid Elementary. Grades 5 and 6 has been the focus of that, as well as some building-wide practices around organization. And in secondary, we have been working on grading for equity. Our main focus this year has been writing and refining rubrics that are tied to our main power standards, and also how to use MasteryTab in Schoology, our learning management system, to assess students' progress on how they're moving towards those power standards. And I just want to say thank you so much for getting all the way to the end and listening to our achievement report for this year.